Welcome to CONEXEC, a global leadership platform for construction executives. This podcast is delivered weekly, featuring construction executives. This is an interview of people in the industry actively working, and it's focusing on for current and future aspiring executives. So today we have Larry Blackburn, and rather than me introduce you, Larry, because I'm going to mess it up, let me give you, and I know you're a humble guy, so I'll let you introduce yourself and try not to be so humble.
Okay, well, thanks, Scott. Appreciate that. As Scott said, my name is Larry Blackburn. I'm a vice president. I oversee our healthcare operations in the state of Florida. I've been started with Turner Construction in 1980, so this is my 40th anniversary coming up this year with the company. Started in Cincinnati, grew up in northern Kentucky, actually. Went to the University of Cincinnati, got my civil engineering degree, and began co-oping with Turner Construction when I was in college. So my first 31 years of my career was in the Cincinnati market. Eventually moved my way up through operations, engineering assignments, project manager, project executive, and then I was overseeing our healthcare operations in Southwest Ohio as well as Kentucky. One of the major projects that I oversaw before I transferred to the Florida market was the University of Kentucky Medical Center tower, new tower on their campus. Very large project, and went from 2006 to 2011 to complete that project. Our value was $352 million, 1.2 million square foot new hospital for the University of Kentucky. Very iconic project, one I'm very proud of. But then Turner came calling on a cold January day. I think I shoveled about 6 inches of snow the night before, and they asked me if I would be interested in taking over healthcare operations in the state of sunny Florida. Thought about 2 seconds. I said, yeah, I would consider that. And
well, based on your age, it would probably be you could transition directly into retirement from you live in Florida. Probably a building you may build.
That is in the plan. Exactly, Scott. So it was a good move. Our children had grown up, moved out of the house. So yeah, it was a good time for my wife and I to move down to Florida. So we settled in the Tampa area, but I travel the whole state. I'm actually in Miami today. I've got several projects in the South Florida market, and I cover our Orlando office, Tampa office, and Miami office. So, and it's a very hot market right now. Florida, obviously, known for many senior citizens, so the healthcare needs are more prevalent down here. So staying extremely busy at this time, which I'm thankful for.
So after 40 years of working in the industry, what's your future plan?
Well, succession of my role, focusing on staff, mentoring, teaching, so that the good work we've got going down here in Florida continues. But yeah, I'm probably 3 years away from maybe retiring. We're starting to put plans in place and look at that. So on a personal level, that's my future plans, 5-year plan or less. But for the company, for Turner Construction, obviously, as a whole, we are growing tremendously. We've got our largest backlog coming into 2020, over $21 billion as a company.
Wow.
But in the state of Florida, I have $400 million worth of healthcare work going on right now, and very much want that to continue after my retirement.
What made you want to do construction? I mean, first off, you went to Cincinnati, which I already have a problem with, but because I'm from Kentucky. But knowing you, what about construction made you want to go into engineering?
Yeah, and I was one of those kids in school. I knew pretty early on I wanted to go engineering. Probably some guidance from teachers. I did well in math, science. But I also had an uncle who worked for Peter Kiewit and Sons, who was in the construction industry. Saw what he did, gained very much interest in that. So it was an easy decision for me. He went to the University of Cincinnati. it was close to home. I wasn't interested in going too far away from home at that time as a 17, 18-year-old, but it worked out well. I think it was a very good decision, obviously. And I know I'm a rarity to stay with one company for so long. I see that so often right now in this business, that engineering students can come out of school and it seems like 5, 7 years are looking to make a move. Proud of the fact that I've been with Turner for 4 years. They've been very good to me, and it was the right decision for me to go into construction.
Well, that's interesting that you've been with I mean, you're right. You're a rarity. Anybody staying with a company for 40 years, but I think you're even more rare in the fact of that, there's not a lot of people who have come from where you have, and gotten to the role that you're in right now. And so, I mean, it's great credit upon you. I mean, I know you as a person, and I can say my assessment is your soft skills were definitely a huge role in that effort. Your ability to communicate, your ability to kind of lead a team down a path. I mean, that's what I've always heard about you, and that's what I've seen, and you should be commended for that. Kind of backing up real quick, can you tell us a little bit about Turner? I know a lot of people know Turner, but I'm not sure that everybody really understands where Turner was when you started and where they are now.
Yeah, I've seen tremendous growth. Back in 1980, computers weren't really on our projects, so they're just the technology. But at that time, we probably had 24 offices. We're over 45, 46 offices. Our international division has grown leaps and bounds. Like I said before, we've got we're a $21 billion company now, recognized as one of the largest construction managers in the country, in the world, the largest healthcare construction manager, which I'm proud of since I focus strictly on the healthcare market. But we have 10,500 employees roughly right now as a company, about 400 in the state of Florida, since that's where I focus on. We've got some tremendous leaders and I've seen some great strides even in the past 5 years. Our focus as a company with Turner, we're a people industry. We don't turn wrenches, swing hammers, saw wood. We're people. So it is relationship. It's making sure that we have the right environment on our projects. The big thing right now for our company is active caring. Is a huge focus all the way down to the workforce, with a focus not only on safety, but making sure we're fully engaged with our staff, with the workforce, that they're doing the job safe at all times. And you're right, Scott. I appreciate the accolades there, because I have built my career on developing relationships, but long-term relationships. Because in our business, people do move around. So there's folks I've run into here in Florida that I worked with up in Ohio and Kentucky that moved, different companies, and having those past relationships help lead into future work as well. So it's tremendous to maintain those relationships.
What's the core focus of Turner, or does it really have a core focus?
Well, we do have, we work in many market segments. Primarily, it is primarily commercial construction, but we do have a sports group. We've done a lot of stadiums around the country. In fact, we were proud of the Super Bowl that came up. We built both Kansas City Chiefs' new stadium and the San Francisco 49ers' new stadium recently. We obviously, the healthcare segment is a focus. That's probably about 25, maybe even pushing closer to 30% now of our overall portfolio. Of course, the K through 12 and higher education markets is another area of focus, and office, little residential, a lot of times mixed use residential. We don't get involved too much in road construction, although we do have a subsidiary, Flatiron Construction, that does some bridge work. But those are our core market segments. But then overall as a company, our core values, if I shift to the core values, are teamwork, integrity, and commitment. And then within that, we do have 4 core areas of focus right now that, I was just at our officers meeting, our senior leadership meeting a couple of weeks ago in San Diego, and our president really drove home that we, as the vice presidents and the leader of the company, focus on the full engagement I mentioned before. Use our skills to increase our capabilities and stay fully engaged with our staff, because we're a people company. It's important. I mentioned the right environment, making sure that people are comfortable where they're working at, and we get the most out of each of our employees and our workforce. A lean culture is a third core path to success that we focus on, and that's through respect for each other, maximizing lean principles, the last planner system. We focus a lot on prefabrication, whatever to drive out waste in our business and be more efficient in delivering our projects. The fourth one is active caring, I mentioned before, and that's really centered around not only safety. We have a commitment to drive to zero injuries on all our projects. Last year, Turner completed about 1,500 projects. A little over 80% of them, we had 0 injuries on those projects. So the message is, why can't we have 0 injuries on 100% of our projects? And one of the analogies is to, go beyond 0. And someone might ask, well, how do you go beyond 0? You can't have -0 injuries on a project. But it's like, if anyone ever ran track in high school, the track coach would always tell you, you want to go beyond the finish line, because if you try to just get to the finish line, you're going to slow up and you're going to get passed up. So beyond 0 is the analogy we're using to focus on 0 injuries and building life for our workforce.
So what are some of your 5 and 10 year plans for the company? Do you guys want to go in a different sector? You want to grow? Obviously everybody wants to grow, but there's obviously focuses there. So can you kind of give us insight there?
Yeah. One area is design build. We do want to increase our focus on the design build markets. The profitability is better in that market segment. We're starting to see more and more of the design build opportunities, becoming more apparent. So that's one area. From, I would say, 2015 to 2019, through 2019, we did increase our focus on design build. In 2015, we did about $850 million worth of design build, and in 2019, we doubled that. We were just under 1.7 billion of design build. But that's an area we want to focus on. We also are focusing on our interiors special projects division. A lot of people think of Turner as a big company. We only do big projects, but quite honestly, we do a lot of smaller projects, especially in the healthcare market. There's a lot of opportunities to go in to upgrade an imaging suite, to put in the newest CT or MRI technology equipment that's now on the market, and those are typically $2 million, $3 million projects. So focusing on that smaller special project type work, interiors work, is an area that we're focusing on increasing, and just overall sales across the board. Not just the big jobs, but we are focusing on a lot of smaller work, because we know the market's been good for the past few years. I look at Florida from 2014 to 2019. The construction market in Florida, this is based on Dodge reports, it was a $9 billion construction market in 2014, but by 2019 it was $20 billion, more than doubled. And it doesn't seem to be slowing up. We look at Dodge reporting futures quite a bit, and yeah, it's going to steady out or flatten out a little bit. From 2019, it was a $329 billion market overall. And we see in the next 5 years it'll dip to a little bit below 300 billion, but that's not much of a decline. So our company is also focused on sustainability of our staff. Even though the market might dip just a little bit, we need to work smarter and make sure we keep our employees employed. Maintain that 10,500 employees over the next 5 years as the market dips a little bit.
You mentioned that you just came back from a meeting of leadership with Turner, and that kind of brings up the question: how do you guys prepare for the future?
We, we're really looking at it monthly through our business review meetings. Keeping our thumb on the pulse of the market. One of our challenges right now is the workforce. There's a lot of shortage in the workforce. I'm sure everybody has heard about it, read about it, dealing with it in their own businesses, I'm sure. So getting, the quantity and the quality of workforce that we need to continue delivering successful projects is a big challenge right now. So we focus on that a lot right now, trying to develop long enduring relationships with certain key subcontractors. And we also work hard to build up the capacity of the smaller businesses. Turner, for over 40 years, we conduct I've done it in Lexington when I was working in Lexington. We would have an annual 10-week course. We called it the Turner School of Construction Management, where we would teach small businesses, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, how to grow their business, and just to increase the capacity of the subcontractor market. And that pays off very well for us. So, we recognize the challenges ahead, so we put plans in place to try to overcome that and prepare for it.
So what do you think in the history you've been with Turner, which, you have a good history and good perspective, what event do you think through your history being there significantly changed or shaped the model that Turner has today? Can you think of any specific event or situation that shaped that business model they have?
Well, I think even very recent here with the new focus on this active caring message that we're trying to get out across all of our employees, that was shaped. We had a large client, actually Facebook, who we do a lot of large work for them in the data center market. And those type of clients, data center, pharmaceutical clients, have a higher level of stringent safety programs. And Facebook, they saw that, your metrics are good, your recordable injury rates are below average or at average, but you're doing 4 projects with us right now, and we don't see that you're consistent among all 4 projects. And we don't see a lot of support for senior management. And we really believe you're having safe projects by luck. It's not a focus. And they called Peter Davern, our president, and said, if you don't change that, you're not going to be doing work for us in the future. And that got our attention. The president very quickly identified 3 vice presidents of the company, took them out of their normal day-to-day operations and said, listen, take time over the next couple of months, go visit our jobs, and I want you to come back and report to me what you're finding as far as how we're managing our safety programs. And it was eye-opening. They found that, our client was right. We weren't being consistent on the way we manage safety. We weren't making it our number one priority. Our pre-task plans were not consistent. They weren't adding value. And, we had over 3,000 workers get hurt on our 1,500 jobs last year. And that was an aha moment. And we now have a new plan put in place, focus, that's being driven, by leadership, supported by leadership. and we are rolling it out this year. And it is the active caring focus that I've mentioned a couple of times now. And it's really driven by getting to the craft workers, getting to the crew leaders. You know, we don't call them foremen anymore because there's a lot of females in our business now. So the crew leaders, they're the ones who can make an impact. And it's simple things. Put their, have a label maker on the job and put everybody's first name on their hard hat so that when we go out there and engage with them, we can talk to them. Mm-hmm. Ask the crafts workers, what's the risk with doing this job, and make sure that they are paying attention, because we don't want, we care, everybody cares, but it really came down to, we care enough? Because if you walk past somebody that's doing something unsafe, you're accepting that unsafe act, and that's not acceptable in our business now. So this active caring drive that we have right now, I think is a huge change in culture, transformation, if you want to call it that we feel will make an impact. We want anyone that walks onto our job site, whether it's an architect, client doing a job site visit, to feel like they've stepped into a project that's extraordinary. There's a different feel in this project. The workers and our staff are fully engaged and working towards the same goal, and making sure that we do go beyond zero with the injuries.
Talking about you personally, and I'm interested in this because you're somebody who's come from, an intern essentially all the way to an executive with one of the largest construction companies in the world. What skills and ability do you think that you have, or you have developed, that help the way you do business today?
Good question. I mean, I think you want to be easy to work with. In the old days, you could be compliance officers and walk out there and be, tough on the workforce, just chastise them if they're not doing things right, instead of talking and engaging and working together to solve whatever the issue might be at hand. I've never really had that approach. I try to understand both sides of the issue and work to a resolution that's good for both parties. It's just been my nature. I think you want to be in a position where people want to work with you, develop those relationships, build those relationships, which is extremely important. Over 70% of our clients are repeat customers, and it doesn't happen if you're not working hard to maintain that relationship, build a relationship. And it's simple stuff, just hobbies, understanding, what clients, their families, what they like to do, and generate discussion. Before our meetings now, on most of my jobs, we have an icebreaker question before we start the meeting, and that's just it could be, all right, we got spring break coming up. Anybody got any spring break plans? And it allows for the team members around the table to get to know each other a little bit better and feel like they're part of a team. And I really try to drive that home. It is the teamwork. And maybe I was taught that, I won't say beat into my head, the term of values of teamwork, integrity, and commitment, because I think those are the keys to my success. I've always proud that a lot of the employees want to be on my projects. I've been told that by some of my supervisors over the years. The team wants to work with you. That's what I want. I want to work with them, obviously, and of course my commitment to the company.
Kind of paired with that, what advice would you give someone looking to get into construction, the construction business?
Technology has changed very quickly. So continuous improvement, continuous learning, you got to be open to do that. I attend a lot of like training seminars, not a lot. I do my share. I mean, you're busy, you're somewhat limited what you can do, but you can read. I mean, items on the computer you can track and follow, webinars, whatnot. But you try to get yourself technically sound. I think the interpersonal skills, it's just got to come natural. I mean, those things are the toughest things to teach. But to get in this business, you want to come in open mind. You got to be patient. Want to develop those relationships, like I continue to mention, but also focus on the technical side. The things are changing quickly. When I did the University of Kentucky job, that was the first job I used, building information modeling. In fact, that's some of the things, Scott, when I worked with you, when we were going over to EKU, and they were starting to add that to their curriculum at the college there at EKU, back when I was working in Lexington. You just got to stay on top. You got to stay on top of your game, otherwise you'll get passed up.
So, if you had to, I think we learn a lot from successes and probably more from the failures we have in life. Can you talk about the few successes and failures you had that kind of taught you a lesson?
Yeah, probably failures. I think you learn most from that. It runs the gamut. I can remember in my early days when I was on the line and grade crew and responsible for the layout of the building. And one of my first projects, using I doing a layout, and I pulled from the wrong target, and we had to remove a footing. Well, you know what? I'm not going to do that again. But that was 40 years ago. But I think now is I see things that the result, and I said, boy, if I had jumped on that a little quicker, I could have maybe changed the result of that, whether it's a dispute with a subcontractor, recognizing that they're in trouble. I've had a couple of situations where subcontractors had defaulted on a project, and those are always difficult to deal with. And wishing that I saw the signs a little earlier. So you learn from that, obviously, and you pick up on that, and then you're more in tune, or you put a process in place to make sure you identify an issue before it becomes a bigger issue. We use a launch matrix now when we launch our jobs that we go through, because that's the key thing. If the project is launched properly, your level of success rate is going to go much, much, much higher, which is common sense. But that's key. If you don't focus on some of the key things when you launch the project, it's going to come back to.
I was thinking when you said about bad news, it's like, if everybody understood that bad news does not get better with time, then we'd probably be in a better spot, So
yes, you're 100% right.
Okay. And I kind of want to jump before we go to the final kind of like what I call the speed session, where we go through and I get your rating on different categories. I want you to be able to, this is your platform, to be able to give any personal advice to somebody who's looking to have a career like yours, and both personally and professionally. Any words of advice or guidance you would give if you were to go back and look at 22-year-old Larry, what would you say?
Well, I wish I would have learned more about certain systems in the business, mechanical, electrical. You learn as you go sometimes. If that's not, I wasn't a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer, but those systems in a project make up 45, 50% of the volume of the project typically. So, I would have liked to have learned more about that. I've gotten by, and I rely on other resources to get me through it. But I think on a more so on a personal level is to really focus on those interpersonal skills. Actually, when I started, construction management wasn't really that prominent at the time. We were general contractors. We were still doing our own concrete work, self-performing a lot of work, and we got away from that, and which was risk, to manage the risk, and became more construction managers and subcontract all that work out. But now that we are strictly and I shouldn't say strictly, we are starting to focus more on self-performance some work, but at least in my role, again, we're only selling ourselves and our people. So, make sure your interpersonal skills are at the highest level. Build your teams, surround yourself with good people. You know, interviewing and making sure you hire the best talent is a challenge. And I don't know if there's a golden ticket on what makes it successful every time, because I have had situations where someone hasn't worked out. But it really comes down to interpersonal skills. You want to be easy to work with and develop those relationships.
And what I think is pretty interesting about, like, you get that advice about being easy to work with or whatever, and I give you great credit upon you. If anybody's ever worked around you or know you, Larry, the one thing that I would have to say more than anything is that somebody told me this. I think maybe it was my father or somebody. He said, you can't do a good deal with a bad business person. And being a good person is at the heart, and I have to give you a lot of credit. I mean, if somebody asked me, do you know just a good person beyond just a good professional, I would rank you really high up there, Larry. So I want to commend you for that, because you have those
Well,
qualities.
thank you.
You definitely have those qualities. So we want to go to the speed session real quick, and I'm going to give you different categories. I want you to rate it from 1 to 10, 10 being the most important, 1 being the least important. They could all be 10s if you choose to. So we'll go ahead and start with scheduling, 1 to 10, and you can explain your answer if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. A lot of these will be high, but scheduling is important. I would say an 8, and because there's certain things you don't want to sacrifice certain things just to drive schedule. Safety being one, quality being another. But obviously, schedule is important. Speed to market for our clients is important, so they can start making revenue, particularly in hospitals. So, it's high. You could very easily say 10, but you don't want to sacrifice schedule for some other key things. That's why I said an 8.
Estimating.
Well, getting that number right, that first number right in any project is extremely important. So I would put that up there as a 10.
Contract administration.
Yeah, I'm the type of guy, again, with relationships. Yes, you got to have contracts. You got to have expectations set, what the clients expect of us, what we expect of our clients, and whatnot. But once we get, the job going, you hear the cliche, put the contract in the door. Hopefully, you don't have to pull it out again. But as that's the contractual side of it, maybe the legal side of it. But as far as administration of the contract, giving the proper notification to the client if there's a delay, or we do have that from time to time. It could be weather delays, and we do have hurricanes here in Florida. But I would say that's a 9, because you don't want to get too much bogged down in the legal side of it, but at the same time, you do got to manage the contract expectations.
What about design?
Design's a 10. That's crucial. I mean, even accurate design, we go through a process of schematic design, design development, 50% CDs, which are the contract documents, 100% contract documents. Yeah, we want to get to 100% contract documents, but it's hard, and I can put myself in designer's shoes. It is hard to do that, but design is extremely important. Ease of permitting, ease of contract administration. So, and we got to work closely with the designers. And honestly, the IPD world of today, which is integrated project delivery, we get involved with some key trade contractors very early in the design process now, in a design assist type contract. So design has even gotten more important over the years that I've been in the business.
And you already addressed the accounting one, so I'm going to move on. I mean, to the contracts, so I'm going to move on to accounting.
Yes.
Accounting.
Okay. Accounting's important. my God, I can spend a lot of time on that on some of my projects because collecting money, managing the budget, bottom line is extremely important. But I don't think it's as important as some of the other items. But still, it's up there, probably a 9. We got to get our payments in on time. We got to get paid timely. We got to pay our subs timely to keep the flow of the project going. But yeah, it's. Go ahead.
What about selling work?
It's a 10. That's my bread and butter. It's what's going to keep people employed. What's going to keep the projects or backlog moving forward. So it's extremely important.
And the last but not least, leadership.
Yeah, it's 10 plus in my mind. You've got to, if you're going to be a good leader, people are going to follow you, and that's what I focus on, and it's going to lead to the success of all the projects. Keep the team together, minimize, or I should say, maximize retention of our staff, minimize turnover. So that's up there on the top of my book is leadership.
Okay, and I just want to kind of close it out. I want to give you the last word, Larry, but before I do, I just want to say I had a chance to get to know you when you were in Lexington building the hospital, and I got to know not only you, but I got to know some of your people, and I had to say I gained a lot of respect for Turner and what they do, especially that particular project was challenging. Anybody that has to finish off the ER on the first floor and continue to build on top of that, that's pretty challenging of a project, and you brought a lot of good things to me personally. And from a personal perspective, being on our industry advisory board, I just, and I talk about like people that you need to align yourself with and try to find mentors. You're a good example of somebody to latch onto somebody like yourself to be a mentor, because you have it figured out. It's a people business, and that probably is why. Well, that's not probably. That is the reason you've been successful in your career, is you understand that. So, but I want to thank you so much for taking some time with me, and I also want to thank you for the friendship, and in addition to that, I want you to thank you for what you do every day. It's people like you that have over the career made a significant difference on our industry, and there's a lot of things you can say about our industry, and some of them are not very good, but you represent a lot of the good things about what we do. So you have the last word, Larry.
Well, thanks, Scott. I greatly appreciate that. I being from Kentucky, I enjoyed my days up in Kentucky. I'm enjoying the warm weather in Florida now, so I don't miss the cold, but I do come back up quite often. I got, children, grandchildren up in the northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area, so I do go visit quite a bit, visit the snow, and then go back home. But no, you hit the nail on the head. We are a people business, and it goes beyond the projects. It's giving back to community. I know my successor there in Lexington, Dave Opaka. He's done a tremendous amount with the mentoring program there in Lexington. We worked hard with the small businesses there in Lexington. I do the same thing in Florida, and that's to me some of the most important stuff as well. I've been involved with United Way, been involved with American Heart Association. So, we have a business. We have to be successful. We got to keep pushing the ball forward, but we also need to take time to get back to our community as well. I think that's equally as important. But Scott, if you're ever down in Florida, let's hook up and catch up again. I enjoyed our friendship over the years, and I thank you for having me on today.
Well, thank you again, Larry. And next week we'll have another construction executive on CONEXEC. Thank you.